All right, so today, staying with our top story, we're joined here in studio by Minister of Home Affairs, Dr. Motsoaledi. A very good afternoon to you, Minister. Thank you for making time here on the SABC.
Good afternoon, Lizelle. Good afternoon to the listeners and viewers out there. And thank you very much for having me.
Look, I know it's been a very, very long day. You've still got a lot more hopping to do, but you have managed to answer quite a few questions during your briefing today. And then some questions raised more questions. So we're perhaps here to explore some of those gaps and also look at where to from here.
Okay.
Perhaps as we gain context to what happened during this case, you highlighted quite a few concerns that had emerged. The question is, why was Thabo Bester not registered on the system?
Well, we had to probe that too. And the only person we can ask is our parents, because it's only parents who come and register their children. We even have a policy that you must register every child within 30 days of birth.
Yeah.
If it goes beyond 30 days, we call it late registration of birth. LRB is a very, very difficult process. Now, we have learned from Thabo's mother that Thabo was not registered because she herself was not. She herself did not have any documentation until she turned 37. When she delivered Thabo, she was 21, because she said her mother, her own mother, was a domestic worker working for a sort of employer who was not allowing her to go anywhere. And she said he kept on telling her, I can't take you to Home Affairs to take a birth certificate or ID because I've got no time. I'm taking care of the children of the employer. She was even angry when I speak to her yesterday that she had a mother who took care of employers' children and neglected their own children. She was not aware that is the tough and harsh conditions of that time under which many black people were living when they got employment. That she was nursing employment, basically, to make them survive. But be that as it may, when she turned 37 in 2002, Thabo's mother, she was born in 1965. When she turned 37, the mother passed on. And then 2 months after the mother passed on, the aunt took over. And she's the one who decided that now I'm going to register this child, even though he's already 37. And so 2 months after the death of the mother, she went to register it. That's why the same name she's keeping now is not the same name of her mother or father. It's the same name of the aunt when the aunt took over. And then only after that, when she got registered, she then decided that I'm now registered, I've got a birth certificate, ID, let me register my children, which were 4 in number. Yes.
All right, so
and then the only one she did not register is Thabo, because he was already gone. Thabo disappeared in 2002, and until she met him again in jail. So she said, I took my 3 children, one of whom unfortunately passed away later, and registered them after being registered. I thought my children must not go through what I went through, even though they also were late registration of birth. But Thabo was nowhere to be found. That's why he was the only one who was not registered. If you take the other children, they hold the same name of Mabaso, which is the same name of the aunt.
Yeah.
But Thabo still kept the same name of Bester, which is the same name he was born with.
So Minister, with that context now, as Thabo, has his identity been added to the Department of Home Affairs beyond, what was recorded by the correctional services?
Sorry?
So basically, he has a criminal record, and that was how he was registered. I want to know, has he been correctly identified by the Department of Home Affairs as we speak right now?
Yes, as far as we're concerned, we did so, because we went to the source. The correct identification of person is at birth. That's why we're opening Home Affairs office in hospitals now, to stop the type of problems that have occurred. But during the time when Thabo was born, there were no Home Affairs. This system was not there. We only started it just before COVID. But the mother was able to tell us that, look, I gave birth to this child on the 13th of June, 1986, at Chris Hani Baragwanath Hospital. We went there. In their archives of 37 years ago, that information, we found it. It corroborated exactly what she told us. And then secondly, she told us where Thabo attended school. We went to that school and found that indeed she's telling the truth. Thabo registered there on the 14th of January 1997. He was already 11 years old, by the way. So everything he's doing is late. I'm sure because of the conditions under which he left. He registered at school there and left when he was in grade 5 in 2002, and he was never to be seen again. So we went to that school, we found it, and we found that he registered with a date of birth because he never had any ID whatsoever. They even gave us his registration number. So all those things are matching. And you are aware that the person who was found dead in the cell and burned, who they thought was Thabo Bester, DNA was done on him and this lady who says is Bester's mother, and they never matched, showing that that is not Thabo.
Yeah.
Yes.
Minister, thank you for that context. It's important because, you know, we're obviously looking at how they managed to leave the country and already who might have assisted in the process. Perhaps you can also rehash, you know, what passport Thabo was using. Also, how many passports Dr. Nandipa had. How was she able to get that and use that?
Well, Thabo could not have any passport. If he had, we would have found him on the National Population Register. I told you when we started searching, we went to the National Population Register, we went to the National Immigration Information System thinking maybe it's an immigrant of some sort. We went to Visa Adjudication System, it was not there. So Thabo never had any birth certificate, not ID. Let me say he still doesn't have a birth certificate, doesn't have an ID, never took a passport, never got married in Home Affairs. He did nothing in Home Affairs. He remained invisible.
This was prior to his arrest because you just said now that he's now on
when he was arrested,
record.
When he was arrested, the Correctional Service and Police only took his fingerprint and the photo because he didn't have any identity. Identity is given by Home Affairs and not by any other department. He didn't have any. So now he has got.
Okay.
So when he was caught in Tanzania and it said that they had multiple passports, Thabo was carrying only one. And it looks like an American passport. It's not ours. It's written American everywhere. The Americans will have to check whether it's an authentic American passport or what. He took that passport in the name of Tom Kelly, you know, an American. Now, Dr. Nandipa.
Yes.
Yeah, Dr. Nandipa had documentation. She's there on the National Population Register. She had the birth certificate, ID, everything. She even had a passport. The passport that she has is only expiring in 2027 because it was issued in 2017. Let me say she took a passport for the first time at the age of 19 in 2007 because our passport for adults are 10 years and only 5 years for children. In 2017, it expired. We gave him a new one. Remember, we don't renew passports. We give you a new one. That one is discarded altogether once it expired. She got the new one. It only expires in 2027. And so she was using it. And the last time, according to us, in terms of our movement control system, which is automated, she used it on the 9th of May to go through Beit Bridge border post and returned on the 12th of May. That's last year, by the way. And returned on the 12th of May, coming from Bulawayo, but entered via OR Tambo International Airport. From there, she never used it altogether. She's still keeping it because it's still valid. The two other passports which were found on her are not hers, but they were also issued legally.
Yes.
They were issued to a Dr. Nancy, you know?
Yeah.
Yes, and one of them have expired. We don't even know why she was carrying it. Dr. Nancy was given a passport in 2012. That passport was due to expire in 2022.
Yes.
But in 2019, she came to Home Affairs. No, she went to police and deposed an affidavit that say her passport has been stolen. That is the normal procedure. And then the police stamped that affidavit. Then she brought it to us in Home Affairs. We gave her a new passport, even though that one was still valid because she said it is stolen.
Yeah.
In 2022, that passport eventually expired. But Dr. Nandipa was found carrying it. We don't know for what reason because it's no longer a valid passport. The third passport which she was carrying, remember, is hers, is the one that belonged to Dr. Nancy, which has expired. The third one also belonged to Dr. Nancy, It's not expired. It's the one that we gave to her in 2019 when she said the first one was stolen. That one is due to expire in 2029. So we found they were carrying all those 3 passports, but she never used them.
Okay.
Any one of them recently.
So I'm just asking you to rehash for those who've tuned in and didn't have that context, because the question then is, how is it possible that they never used any of our ports on record to escape? How would you explain that phenomenon?
That they never used
any of our ports to escape? It's not a record, right?
Well, yes. Well, we can't prove it. There are only 2 possibilities. They either jumped a fence through illegal routes, which are found across borders all over the world. Either they did that, or they were held by somebody working within immigration and police. It's not unfounded for police and immigration officials to work together to help somebody to cross illegally. Those are the only 2 possibilities, and that's what the police ought to be investigating.
I'm asking this because you also at the briefing spoke about how you got word of the story through media, and we tried to understand the different departments and how they communicate effectively with each other to get information across. And so with you having heard the news through the media, when there was a big alert issued for them, perhaps after they had been arrested, or perhaps after Thabo had escaped, reports were doing the rounds and the story actually finally broke in February and became big news. Why was nothing done back then? And what information will you rely by your department in particular? Perhaps in terms of monitoring borders, perhaps in terms of looking at who's entering and exiting the country. I'm asking this because I want to understand what your department is doing to safeguard the security of South Africa.
Well, Lizelle, I'm sure you are aware that we established a border management authority, which was not there before. It was realization that our borders are porous, they were not managed.
Yeah. Because
if I take you back, during the apartheid era, the borders were like a fortress. There were electric fences around. There was an army, very highly armed soldiers all over, and even some white farmers were given farms next to the borders and armed by the government. That was to stop freedom fighters from coming in. When Nelson Mandela took over, he said, we are no longer at war with the world and our neighbors or any other person. We've got friendship. We must remove these things. The mistake that happened is that that was never replaced with anything. Now there's a structure called NICOC, which is called National Intelligence Coordinating Committee. It coordinates military intelligence from the army, crime intelligence from the police, civilian intelligence from state security, and finance and fiscal sort of intelligence center. It coordinates those 4. 12 years ago or so, more than a decade at least, when they were doing what they call intelligence estimate, they realized that what we are doing at the borders cannot go on. It's not allowed. They then said, let's establish a border management authority. Unfortunately, it took 10 years for Parliament to finalize, to pass the Act on Border Management Authority. We've now started. It has got a commissioner who always comes to the media. It has got 2 deputy commissioners. In July, we hired the first cohort of 200 border guards. They are busy now hiring 400 border guards, but that's just the beginning. And basically, that's what we are doing to secure our borders. But we're not going to stop there. We need technology.
Yeah, because the concern is this happens.
Yes, we need drones.
So how do you reassure South Africans?
How do I reassure them?
South Africans that the systems in place is actually, effective.
No, we don't have drones yet. We don't have sensors. We still have to put X-ray machines when people are being smuggled or goods are being stolen. We still have to do that. So we're a long way from establishing the full control over the borders. But in terms of an invading army, because I'm sure you are talking about security, the army is there. And the Border Management Authority is not going to replace the army. It is there to protect South Africa and protect its sovereignty. What we are doing is to what we call access control, to control who comes in and out. And the army has told us that look, if I found an old lady who has got no passport, no document, carrying a baby, sneaking into South Africa because he's coming to buy meal from Mozambique or Zimbabwe. They said they are not going to stop them because that's not what the army is there for. They are only there for people who are threatening the sovereignty and security of the country. So we had to hire border guards who will deal with access control. They too are not going to stop people from coming to South Africa. All they are going to say is, look, we have got a normal border gate there which is official, where there's equipment to register you and all that. Please go through it. But if you don't want to go through there, you are sneaking, you are stealing and all that, then they won't be able to know that you have even crossed. We've got 72 ports of entry. 53 are land, 8 are seaports, 11 are international airports. All those, they just advise you go there, because when you pass there, you'll be recorded. But there are people who don't want to do that deliberately, who look at somewhere to sneak in and come in.
Well, it seems to be a sophisticated network in operation. I mean, it's not one person that can be pinned down. I think I'm also asking this because I wanted to understand how many in your estimate, how many South Africans are not then registered in the country, and how cases like Thabo, how often can cases like Thabo Bester, occur in South Africa? Also, what are you then going to do about it?
I know in percentages.
Yes.
Lizelle. In terms, what we are talking about is called civil registration.
Yes.
In terms of the progress on civil registration, we are number 2 on the continent of Africa. Number 1 is Egypt. They are at 98%. We are number 2 at 89%, which means we still have 11% of people who are South Africans. There are countries who are still at 5%. In most of them, right here on this continent, where you are born, you get married, you die, it's not recorded anywhere. So that the extent to which it's happening in South Africa is 11%. That's why we decided that in order to expedite it, let's open many Home Affairs platforms all over the country. And I announced it in my budget speech. That will open malls. We've already opened one in mainland. We're still going to go on. We need to increase the trucks, the mobile trucks that are Home Affairs offices on wheels. We used to have 100. We bought 20 more. We've ordered another 100. So we are trying to make sure that within a short space of time, we are at the level where Egypt did and overtake it. So I can't sit here and lie to you that all South Africans that are there are registered. Some of them, as I said, like Thabo. Thabo is not registered because there was a lack of facilities. The mother has already told us why, that the parents were just refusing to take them there. And we don't get into houses and ask people to register. The best we did was, let's put the means in a hospital so that parents can use. And that's why we're going on putting Home Affairs offices in hospitals. If Thabo was born now at Bara, it has got one of the biggest offices ever of Home Affairs, which is there on a full-time basis.
Minister, do we have any information about his paternal family relations, perhaps also in relation to his other siblings? The identity, any other information you can divulge at this point? Siblings as well as his father's side?
No, the siblings are registered on the National Population Register.
And his father?
In fact, we're able to develop a family tree of Thabo Bester, but it consists only on the maternal side. On the paternal side, I'm sure Lizelle is going to be very difficult to meet any woman if she doesn't volunteer information and ask them who their father is, or meet any child for that matter. It's a sensitive issue for a person to be asked what if they don't know, and there are complications. So the family tree we have drawn is from the great grandmother of Thabo, and then from there is all women, and the children. Some of whom are Thabo's brothers who are there on that family tree. That we've been able to identify because our system is able to draw the form of a family tree. So we didn't get into that, I must confess. It's a very sensitive area.
Just asking because, we're obviously trying to put the pieces of the puzzle together.
Yeah,
that is a missing link.
I personally have gone into hospitals where I give newborn babies birth certificate after they've just been printed. We have decided that on a birth certificate, we must have the name of the mother, the name of the father, and the name of the child. I can tell you in most of them, where it comes to the name of the father, is blank. And when you ask them, and I ask them in secrecy, and some of them you can see they are very uncomfortable to give you that type of answer. You know, so it's something that socially is very sensitive, and we have got to respect that sensitivity.
Minister, let's move away from the Thabo Bester saga that's unfolding. I just want to get your comments perhaps on the ZDP case that's also underway. Many questioning the timing of it, the time frames as well. Why the rush? How would you respond to that? Some questioning whether it's electioneering season and this is
rushing.
The manner in which the process is unfolding. Some are questioning whether this is part of electioneering of sorts as we head into elections come 2024.
This is
I'm asking because, you know, many say that it was disingenuous on the part of Home Affairs to say that it's going to be, transitional and then a more permanent structure we put into place, and now they've been lured, and it seems that the entire truth hasn't been divulged. How would you respond to those comments?
That's ridiculous. The ZEP was given for the first time in 2009. For 3 years. It was set to expire after 3 years. It expired and was renewed for 5 years. That took it to 2017. Come 2017, when it expired, it was renewed. Up to, for another 5 years, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. Now, in 2021, long before, there will always be elections, by the way. And it's irritating that whenever you run government, they say it's because of election. If you don't run government, people will get angry. At no stage are we going to stop running government because there's election. In 2021, we ask ourselves, for how long do we keep on renewing this thing, which was supposed to be temporary in 2009? For how long does a temporary remain temporary? For how long is temporary? Then we said, no. There are lots of Zimbabweans who are in South Africa as other nationalities, who are here through other permits and visas. Why can't they all obtain those? And we then said, no, we're giving them a full year to apply for those. And we even gave a favor and said, because under normal conditions, when you apply for a work visa, you must go and obtain certificate, you yourself, not us, from the Department of Labor. I gave them a waiver from that. I said, if you apply for a waiver, I'll give you, and I've been signing waivers, meaning they don't have to go to labor. Then they apply for this normal visa. So what is the issue about the Russian elections then?
So what is the decision then you're waiting from the High Court? Earlier on, Advocate Mbega and Ngugai Toby Senior Counsel informed the court of the proposed settlement, and you responded and you asked what was that? What are you ultimately looking for?
I don't know what the settlement is. We are just explaining our case, what we're trying to do. So when they say a settlement, settle for what? On what? I didn't know anything about this settlement. I heard it during the press conference when somebody asked me about the settlement.
So what are the alternate options that can be explored, perhaps as we look at vetting migrants, amongst other avenues, especially with some of the conditions for them to qualify for other permits? Seems to be facing a lot of barriers. I
told you that there are 17 different permits in South Africa. And I can challenge you, go and check with other countries and find which country has got lesser permits than, more permits, to say, than South Africa. That's visas and permits. Okay. It's a large number. Visitors, spousal, relative, work visa and all that. There are many, and all we are saying is apply for that. All other nationalities are doing so. So why are you not asking the same thing about other nationalities? And also, the issue of a special permit, which eventually came to an end, was also given to Angolans. When the United Nations announced that there is no more problem in Angola, many of them decided that please allow me to stay here. They were allowed. Others left and say, no, I'm going back home. We also issued them to Lesotho, and they are only expiring in December. So I don't understand what this halabaloo is all about.
How are you going to ensure that if the permit does expire, that there's capabilities to process? I'm asking this because there is a backlog in the Home Affairs system at large.
What?
For processing. So you're saying they're coming to an end come June 2023. We're already having a visa backlog, renewal backlog. Walk us through that.
Our law is clear. When you have got a visa, you want to renew it because it's going to expire. When you apply for that renewal, you are given a receipt. Until that application has been processed, that receipt is your guarantee. Nothing can happen to you because you showed an indication that I want to apply. It's not like if you refuse to apply, like many of them. That receipt stands you in good stead, that with this receipt. Now, people were confused 2 weeks ago when the DG issued the directive and they said they're extending visas. He was not extending them. The receipt itself is already a guarantee. What the DG was doing was this. When your visa expires, our system at the borders is automated. When you arrive at the border with an expired one, it automatically says you are undesirable. It stamps your passport undesirable because it says you have overstayed. That's automatic. Then you have got the job of applying to the minister to give reasons why you overstayed, show the receipt, and the minister will give a waiver. To stop that administration, which is a burden on both the person applying and the minister and the department, the DG issued that directive and say, look, when we are extending this issue in terms of your travel, when you travel through the borders, you must not be regarded as having overstayed. You can go in and out of the country as long as you go formally. Basically, that's what he was doing. So if anybody applies for anything, the receipt itself guarantees them until such time that we reject the application or we accept and give them what they are asking for.
And then just in conclusion, what are you going to do about the undocumented migrants workers that are in the country? How are you going to manage that process?
Well, look, we've been managing it. Every year we deport between 15,000 and 20,000 people. That's what happens every year. Under normal conditions. Some years it's higher and all that. We're doing that. It's a very expensive exercise. We have just recently increased the immigration inspectors by 200. But we thought there's no point in keeping on arresting people, deporting them, and they coming back. That's why we want to strengthen the Border Management Authority to make sure that people can only come legally inside the country.
All right, Minister, thank you for your time. I know that there's so many more themes to explore, but you've come here, you've held yourself to be accountable to some of the questions that we had. Also wishing you all the best as this investigation unfolds. Perhaps we can also see how we can strengthen some of the gaps, ensure that justice ensues, and perhaps South Africa also becomes a more effective country to live and operate in. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you very much.